Okay, so what are your thoughts on? I know we mentioned we were going to briefly talk about it, and that may be very brief, but the missing years of Jesus. That's kind of interesting
Right.
because I actually saw something probably 10 years ago, right around the time I was leaving Christianity, and I saw something in an extra biblical source. I don't know. It might have been something like the Gospel of Thomas or something, I'm not sure,
Right.
where it actually discusses a young Jesus, and the content
Really vile.
is very, very like,
Really
man, it's
does
very
not
bad.
portray
It's
Jesus in a very positive light.
not at all. A young,
Right.
bratty, spoiled kid who had anger issues. Wow. So,
Absolutely true. That's an accurate statement.
man. So what? That's weird.
What-
Yeah.
First of
Thoughts?
all, the reason why that was rejected as gospel truth is because it did not portray Jesus in a positive light. But why was it written in the first place? Because what they had didn't really say anything about those years after the birth of Jesus to when all of a sudden he starts his ministry.
And you know it's wild. Now that we think about it, if you think about it, the youngest account that we have, excuse me, the oldest young account of Jesus that we have in the New Testament is whenever Mary and Joseph had left the temple, and they, after 2 or 3 days or however long it was, they realized, oh, my kid's missing, you know.
Right.
And then whenever they do track him down, he's like, "What do I have to do with you, woman?" or something. I don't know what he said, but it was
Yeah,
something
like he
like,
doesn't even recognize his own mother
"Yeah."
or her own significance.
He's like, "I'm about the Father's business" and all this other stuff. But the attitude that he had, which seemed to me disrespectful of his mother and his parents, why
And
he
it's
would respond that
also
way.
and it also points out that even though Mary had all these visions and notification that she was going to give birth to the Messiah, she forgot it. All of a sudden, doesn't know why he's
Yeah,
in the temple. I mean, again, it's the inconsistency within the texts of the New Testament.
yeah, right.
Okay, but the it is evidence again. Start over. When did Jesus become significant? Jesus became significant when he starts his ministry, when he's already an adult.
When he
Mark is
when he
the
changes water into wine, he's like,
but,
"Wow, that was
but
good."
that's already part of what he's doing.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, he's already an adult, is my point.
yeah, yeah. Right.
So the oldest gospel is Mark. Mark doesn't say anything about a birth story of Jesus. He's walking along, and all of a sudden, God says, "I choose you."
Hmm.
Which, by the way, in the earliest Christian years, there was a heresy that Jesus was not born of God, but rather Jesus was chosen, adopted by God, and it was called adoptionism as an early heresy of the church. So the fact that there was no birth story and that Jesus is all of a sudden starting out as an adult means that there probably shouldn't be any stories about Jesus growing up until no stories about Jesus until he starts doing his miracles and telling the world that he is supposedly who he is, who he was. And then Matthew comes along, knows about the complaints. Well, there's no birth story. There's no genealogy. You got to prove to me that Jesus was a descendant of King David
Right.
through King Solomon without going, the whole bit. And so Matthew, when he invents his gospels, he adds stories about Jesus's birth story, but it's not necessary to say anything about his growing up, his
Yeah.
education, or
Right.
anything, because what's important is when he starts his ministry, like you have in Mark. It's another indication of how the stories of Jesus' birth story were made up.
Right.
Matthew and
Yep.
Luke are
That's
the
what
only
it
ones
appeared to
who
be.
have it.
Yep. That's what I'm thinking too.
I'm sorry?
I said that sure does appear that way.
Yes, it does.
Very good.
And then, again, in order to fill the gap, you have later gospels invented to give the stories, to flesh out the stories of what happened with Jesus when he was younger. They just didn't portray him in a very nice light, so their gospels were rejected by the early church.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, I think that's a good wrap for our today's show. Rabbi, thank you for your
Yeah,
time.
we covered a lot
We did.
and a lot of variety, so
We
that was
did.
a good show.
We did. I'll have to decide whether I want to put this all in one or make 3 different modules out of it.
Totally up to you.
Yep.
I enjoy it no matter how you do it.
Very good, very good. So, guys, thank you once again for tuning in. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss anything. Turn on all notifications. That's where you'll be sure to not miss anything. And we'll catch you on the next round. Take care. Shalom, everybody. Peace.
If you enjoy this channel and the content, and it has changed your life, or perhaps the life of a loved one or a close friend, would you please consider supporting this work? You can click this link and it'll take you directly to my website with the donate button. Or there's a Patreon link and a mailing address for snail mail if you would prefer. If you do donate, please do me a favor and leave me a phone number where I can contact you and thank you properly. I hope you all have a wonderful 2025. Shalom.